So in the interest of not lying to you, the desk behind me is actually a total mess. It's just a mess that I've redirected to my floor. It's really a facade. Those plants aren't even mine. So yesterday was a bit of a heartbreaking day. If you followed the Ghomeshi trial or anything, I found that the internet and a lot of what I contributed to the internet was very negative and upsetting, and I don't think that that's completely wrong. I don't think that it was uncalled for. It's totally okay to be sad and upset and angered and infuriated. But today's a fresh start, and I'm not saying by any means that people need to get over what happened, and I'm not saying that everything has a positive outcome, but I do want to highlight that that is the case sometimes, and that, you know, in order for me to have any faith in the world, I have to believe when I'm in a bad situation that something good is going to come out of this. And on that note, I have a bit of a story time. If you know me, you have probably heard this story a multitude of times. It's probably one of my favorite travel stories. Also, if you know me, you probably know that I'm a relatively well-traveled individual, and also that my travels have resulted in some pretty absurd stories. Like, I don't know what it is, but like, I find myself in the most ridiculous situations sometimes, like things that like wouldn't even be in a movie are just like so ridiculous, and this is probably in the top 3 most absurd things that have ever happened to me. So as you may or may not know, I spent a length of time living in rural China, you know, as one does. And this story takes place about, I would say, a month into moving there. And when I moved there with almost no like background knowledge about the country, couldn't speak the language. It was safe. It was really safe choice. I can't believe my parents let me do that. And throughout my period in China, I had a partner that was originally from England who was also teaching and working in China. And he lived about a 6 or 7 hour train ride away from where I was living. So we sort of decided, you know, like we'll travel back and forth and see each other on weekends when we can. And this story takes place the first weekend that I went to go see him. If you've ever been to China, you will know that it is very different to travel in from the rest of Asia, especially Southeast Asia. China's only been open to foreign tourism and international tourism for, you know, a couple of decades, whereas there has been international tourism in the rest of Southeast Asia for a very long time. There isn't really a lot of English anywhere in China. I mean, like, in the major cities like in Beijing and Shanghai and Kunming, there's more English for sure. In the end of my trip there, I spent a couple of months backpacking the country, and at that point I had learned how to speak the language to a pretty proficient level, and even then, like, I had tons of struggles trying to get around. So keep in mind that in this part of the story, I had only been in the country for like maybe a month. I could speak almost none of the language. So it's sort of like my first venture by myself outside of my town, which was called Jurong. The place that I was going to is called Pijiu. So I was informed by other people that if I wanted to travel anywhere by train, that I should buy my ticket in advance. Here in North America, when they're selling tickets for something like a train, usually they will sell enough tickets for all the seats on the train and then they'll stop. And they don't really do that in China. Like, they'll keep selling tickets. So unfortunately, sometimes you will buy a ticket for this train and you will find yourself standing on the train. And I found myself standing on a train for one of my trips for like 16 hours. So I knew that I wanted to buy my tickets in advance. So what I did was I bought my ticket to go there And at the same time as buying my ticket to go there, I bought my ticket back just because I was so paranoid of having to stand for so long on this train. But I made a little bit of a mistake when I bought my ticket, which is where our story begins. So I took the train there, everything was fine, had a lovely weekend, and then I wake up on Sunday morning and I go to the same train station that I arrived in. My train was at 9:30. It was going from Pizhou to another city, and then I had a 1-hour layover, and then I had to take another train to Nanjing, which is like the station that's nearest to Jurong. And so I get to this train station on time, everything is fine, I make it through security, and I'm waiting on the platform for my train. So just for a bit of context, I pulled up one of my train tickets from my travels. It's not the one from this specific story, but here you can see that this is the car number, and then this is my seat number. So like the car number would be 16, and then the seat number would be 11C. And then of course, you know, because I don't speak the language or read it, I don't understand the rest of the ticket. I just know that, you know, it's going from point A to point B, this is my car and this is my seat, so everything else must be correct, no? So the train pulls up and I go to my car, I show the conductor my ticket, and he looks at it, and he looks at me, and then he shoves it right back in my face and starts taking tickets from the next people in line. And I'm sort of like, what? Like, I don't speak the language. It was terrible. And I'm like, this is my car. My car is here, my seat. And he kept saying something that I didn't understand, because my proficiency in Chinese Mandarin was so poor. I guess I was making a bit of a commotion because there was a Chinese student that was around and who could speak a bit of English, and he came up to me and he's like, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" And I'm like, I have my ticket here and he's not letting me on the car. And so he looks at my ticket and he starts talking to the conductor, and they both seem to sort of like understand what's going on, and then he turns to me, he's like, "I know what your problem is." Just for example, on this ticket here, it says, like, I was traveling from Shanghai, obviously, to Nanjing, but if you don't know the language, you might miss that this says Nanjing Nan, which means Nanjing North. Sometimes cities have multiple train stations, and if you get the wrong train station, surprise, they won't let you on the train. So this student says to me, he's saying, "Wrong station. Your ticket is from Pizhou South, and this station is Pizhou East." And I'm standing there like, good. So apparently, I guess there were 2 trains with the same destination that were leaving at the same time. I had bought the ticket for the wrong station. So I'm freaking out because I have to work the next day. If I miss this train, I miss my connection, which means that I miss my train back to my town. And I am absolutely paranoid about getting in trouble for missing work. And this other train station is across town. There is absolutely no way I can make it. So everybody boards the train and all the conductors get on and the train starts moving, and I'm just left standing there, the only one on the platform, thinking like, awesome, great. And the train's starting to move, like I don't know what to do, and all of a sudden I get grabbed from behind. There was like an arm that went like across here, across my chest, and then one across my stomach, and I'm lifted off the ground and I'm being dragged backwards. And yes, this is as terrifying as it sounds. I can't see who's lifting me. I'm in such a state of shock that I can't breathe, I cannot scream, I can't do anything. I'm so freaked out. I don't know who's like got me. There's no one on the platform. Everybody's on the train. Now, this train, it was the connecting train. It was only about an hour's ride long. In these trains, there's like multiple cars. There'll be like the sleeper car, which will be beds that are just sold like for night trips or for really long trips. And then there's like seat cars. This person pulled me onto one of the sleeper cars, which of course is completely empty because it's like 9 a.m. They're obviously not going to be selling beds. So I get pulled onto this empty car as the train is moving and the door shuts, and I whip around to see who this is, like ready to fight. You know, I'm like this tiny 110-pound girl that like got lifted directly up off the ground, like I weighed next to nothing. And the person who had like picked me up was a conductor, and it wasn't the same conductor from before. It was a different conductor, and it's only me and him on this car, and I am scared out of my mind. And then he walks to the aisle, and then he folds down one of like the little seats, because on one side of the aisle there's like the beds, and then on the other side there's the window, and in between each window there's like a little fold down seat. He folds down one of the seats, he grabs me, he plunks me in it, and he just points at me like, stay there. And I'm like sat down in this chair like, oh my god, okay. And then he walks out the door to the next train car and closes it, and I'm all alone on this car. So this connecting train was only about an hour, and I did not know what was going to happen. I was so scared, and like my phone had died. I couldn't call anyone. I didn't have any kind of weaponry, so like I pull out like my little fork to use as a weapon, you know, just in case he comes back. I don't know what's gonna happen. So about an hour passes of me sitting in this seat sweating, and the train pulls up to the station. And then right around that time, the conductor came back into the car, and I've got my little fork behind my back just in case I need to, you know, mess him up a little bit. And I literally, in my mind, I'm like, this is how I die. Like I literally thought that this was the end. And the conductor like grabs my shoulders and like picks me up off the seat, and he walks me over to the door right as it pulls up to the platform, and he just like shoves me right off, right onto the platform. And then he was gone, and I'm left standing there on this platform in absolute shock. So this conductor couldn't speak English to me and didn't know who I was. And you could probably assume that the penalties for smuggling someone onto a train in China are relatively severe. I'd say that'd be a safe bet. So this conductor risked, at the very least, his job to get me onto this train. And while like he could have done it in a way that made me feel a little bit less like I was going to be murdered, I'm so appreciative that he like risked everything to get me on this train. I guess what had happened was this conductor must have seen like what was going on, and must have been able to sort of like put two and two together, like the stupid Canadian traveler like doesn't know what she's doing, bought the wrong ticket. And for some reason, completely unknown to me, just decided to help me out. And yeah, it was like one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me. I literally thought I was gonna die. My parents get so mad when I tell this story. I don't think I've ever told this story around my mom where she hasn't said, I am never letting you travel again at the end of it. Clearly she's implemented that. But I guess like the weird twisted moral of this story is that the entire world isn't bad. Maybe it's kind of a weird conclusion to like draw from this experience, but like getting kidnapped and smuggled onto that train like kind of restored my faith in humanity. Especially with everything that's been going on lately, I think that it's hard sometimes to really believe that there's more good in the world than bad. I really have to believe that there are genuinely good people in this world. There are people that will put their job at the very least on the line for complete strangers just because they genuinely care. Anyways, that's kind of the end of the story. One of many bizarre travel stories that I've experienced. I hope that at the very least this story brought like a smile to some people's faces. I kind of want to start doing something, whether it's here on YouTube or elsewhere, where I sort of talk about things that I like social issues and my weird travel experiences and like sociology and stuff like that. I don't know if that'll be here or what. If you have suggestions, like let me know. But yeah, it's been nice chatting. Ooh, I'm not a YouTuber. I don't have like a fancy outro. Like, see you all later. Song and animation. I feel kind of inferior. I hope you enjoyed this story time, and I hope that this helps some people be able to see the good in the world. Okay, bye.